There's these hidden toxins that are in our everyday cosmetics that can actually turn cancer genes on inside of the body. My mind was blown.
This study is literally groundbreaking in that there's a long-held belief in common culture as well as through the cosmetic industry itself that beauty and personal care products don't contribute to our toxic load. They don't contribute adversely to our health, and they don't increase rates or risk of disease. This study basically completely shut that down. For the first time, we have been able to see exactly what certain ingredients are doing in the humans, in the human model, because we ethically cannot study chemicals in humans. We can't subject people to toxic chemicals and see what happens. That typically happens in animals. Unfortunately, a lot of these chemicals are being released into our personal care products, into our consumer goods. And it isn't until after decades of use that we start to see correlations and associations with disease. And this study basically asked 41 women to switch out their beauty and personal care products for a very short time, for 28 days, just 28 days. Switch out your beauty and personal care products and stick to a list of approved products that does not contain parabens, phthalates, and other phenols, which are endocrine disruptors. Just to give you a background on endocrine disruptors, these are chemicals that are xenoestrogens that interact with estrogen receptors in the body. They can cause a host of health issues ranging from cancer, infertility, miscarriage, cognitive decline, and so much more. When these women switched out their products, so what they did was they took measurements by injecting the breasts of these really, really brave participants. They took breast cancer cells, measured breast cancer genes before and after the intervention. So the intervention, like I said, was very simple. Only switch out your beauty and personal care products, avoiding certain ingredients, parabens, phthalates, and phenols. After 28 days, they saw a significant reduction in breast cancer gene expression, which is huge. This is in humans. So we're not talking about rats that were subjected to extremely high doses, which is what you normally see. This is doses that you would see in products that are being sold on store shelves that people are using day in and day out as we speak. They have not been banned. They haven't been outlawed. They are still very much prevalent in the marketplace.
I mean, mind-blowing. What are the implications? It's 41 participants, but as you mentioned, it's human beings. And it's also not just like an observational study. They're actually looking at these expression of cancer genes inside the body. What are the implications for especially all people, but especially women who are listening to the podcast today?
The implications would be that even though there's 41 women, this study showed that the breast cancer genes were activated when they started, meaning that the products that they were using with those ingredients were responsible for activating those genes. Once they took those ingredients away, breast cancer genes turned off. What does this mean? This means that once you stop using products that contain parabens, phthalates, and other xenoestrogens, that breast cancer genes turn off, meaning you reduce the risk of developing breast cancer. One of the risk factors for developing breast cancer is the activation of breast cancer genes. That's the first step in the process of developing cancer, is the genes need to be turned on. Something needs to be turned on because estrogen is actually a carcinogen. It's naturally occurring in the body, but what it does is stimulate growth in estrogen responsive tissues. The breast, the brain, the uterus, the cervix, the gut even has estrogen receptors in it. So these estrogen receptors are all over our bodies. And when we're putting products on our skin that have estrogenic ingredients, they're getting absorbed through the skin into the bloodstream and traveling to areas of the body that are responsive to estrogen, clearly the breast.
Mind-blowing. You mentioned a few of these ingredients that they had participants remove. Can you reshare what those ingredients are?
Parabens being one of them. So there are several different types of parabens, and you can find these on your personal care products just by turning the bottle around and looking at the ingredients list. And you can see methyl paraben, butyl paraben, propyl paraben. Those tend to be the most commonly used parabens. There's a long-held belief within the cosmetic industry that these parabens are innocuous, that the amount absorbed is so low that it doesn't matter. But clearly the study shows otherwise.
What are some everyday products that listeners are using? Literally this morning when they wash their face, when they are putting makeup on, what are some everyday products that you see people using that are sold on the store shelves today, especially here in the United States, that would be an example of being similar to the types of products that women would be using in this study and would contain these ingredients like parabens?
This is an excellent question. And I set out to do research myself. I walked into a store and I picked up several products to see how many out there still have parabens. What are the major products that I see being promoted online that still contain these ingredients? One of them being CeraVe. CeraVe is one of the major brands out there right now. Some of their face washes still have parabens in them. For no good reason. Parabens are completely unnecessary. They're basically used to extend the shelf life. They're preservatives. They don't need to be used. There are plenty of other safer alternative preservatives out there. And it's basically because they're extremely effective and cheap. So they're not being phased out as of yet. Other products that I found were Nivea body lotion, which I personally used for quite a long time. And the issue with body lotion is that you apply it generally over large parts of the body and you don't rinse it off. So the chance for toxic absorption is greater than any other type of product.
If there's these studies that are popping up, like the one that you mentioned, which we've linked to in the show notes, people can take a look at it. We've highlighted on YouTube for those that are watching there. Title being The Reduction of Daily Use of Parabens and Phthalates Reverses Accumulation of Cancer-Associated Phenotypes Within Disease-Free Breast Tissue of Study Subjects. So we have the link to that. So if there's more of this type of research that's popping up, why are companies that are out there, multinational, large conglomerates, why are they still using these ingredients in the products?
There could be several reasons for this. One of them is definitely profit-driven, simply because of the effectiveness and the low cost, but also the higher cost of having to substitute their ingredients. But it isn't until consumers become aware of these problematic ingredients and demand safer ingredients that some of these companies will actually start taking action. So that's really the purpose of why I felt it to be so important to share this information, because most people who are using cosmetics these days are young women. There was a study showing that up to 70% of young girls below the age of 12 are actually using cosmetics, being lotions, fragrances, makeup, any of those type of products that are to enhance physical appearance. Those are considered cosmetics. And kids are starting to use them at younger ages these days. And this is something that we really need to pay attention to, since disease rates are skyrocketing among younger populations. So they're not disconnected, I think.
And not only do we need to pay attention to it, there are actually lifestyle aspects that we can all take on. Sure, choosing better products is an easier one, and you've built out a whole entire platform on Instagram. Please, everybody, follow Dr. Burkart on Instagram. But there are also lifestyle tips that we're going to get to, and one supplement in particular that is incredible at supporting our body's natural ability to detoxify. We're going to get to all that in a minute. So some of this might feel like doom and gloom, but it's for everybody's awareness, including my own awareness as well, that we don't have to live in this toxic soup, which is an experiment. We all don't know. In fact, one of the main messages that you share on social media is that nobody knows for certain what is happening to the human body when you combine all of these different ingredients together and you course them over a lifetime of exposure. Can you chat a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. When it comes to understanding the safety or the toxicity of a chemical, let's say, most studies are done in animal models, so rats and mice, and they're given extremely high doses for short periods of time, maybe longer periods. But when it comes to doing these studies, they could be $1 million. They could take 2 or 3 years to study. Most companies are not going to do this because it's not mandated anywhere for them to do this, except in Europe. Europe has much stricter regulations when it comes to cosmetic ingredients in particular, and just ingredients in general, simply because of how their healthcare system is set up. So they're more of a socialistic setting. So it does not benefit the government for people to get sick, right? Whereas in our country, we live in a more capitalistic society. Things are different here. So it's more focused on profits as opposed to people's health, unfortunately. And so when it comes to understanding the complexity of chemicals that we're exposed to, there is no way to apply that into a laboratory setting. There's just no way. Everybody's using different types of products. People eat different types of food. We have different genetic backgrounds. It's really difficult to make any meaningful conclusions with the complexity. There's hundreds of thousands of chemicals that are being registered and released into the commercial space every single year. There's no way to keep up with that. There's no way to study all that. Nobody knows. So the framework is innocent until proven guilty, which is exactly what we see with this study on parabens and phthalates.
Search this title on YouTube to see the rest. Subscribe and share this with someone. Make life better, make life sweet.